So let us settle in. Let us hear these words from Matthew chapter 25, verses 1 through 13. Then again, the kingdom of heaven could be likened to 10 attendants who took their lamps and went to meet the bridal party. 5 of them were wise, 5 were foolish. When the foolish ones took their lamps, they didn't take any oil with them, but the wise ones took enough oil to keep their lamps burning. The bridal party was delayed, so they all fell asleep. At midnight, there was a cry, "Here comes the bridal party! Let's go out to meet them." Then all the attendants rose and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "Perhaps there won't be enough for us. Run to the dealers and get some more for yourselves." While the foolish ones went to buy more oil, the bridal party arrived, and those who were ready went to the marriage feast with them, and the door was shut. When the foolish attendants returned, they pleaded to be let in. And the doorkeeper replied, "The truth is, I don't know you, so stay awake, for you don't know the day or the hour." Here ends the reading.
Whew. Will you pray with me? Holy One, let these words sink into our hearts and guide us toward you. Amen. So some of you may think it's a bit odd to use a text that seems to be pointing to some kind of end times on a day when we welcome new members, and even odder to use a text that seems to include some and shut out others. But I believe there is something here that speaks to us on this day, a message that is vital for us to consider as we consider what it means today to be a community of faith in covenant with one another. You know, often with parables, we fall into a binary way of thinking where we try and see what character we are and what each character means and how we understand ourselves and we put ourselves in the parable. But I wonder if today you might explore with me instead, what if this parable is teaching us that it didn't have to be this way? Instead of finding ourselves in the parable as it exists, what if the parable is pushing us to consider how else we might respond and how that might change the outcome for everyone? This text is often talked about as keeping your lamps trimmed and burning. And in fact, there are quite a few well-known hymns that are focused on that phrase. Does anybody know a few bars from some of those hymns? Give me oil in my lamp, I pray. And then I pray. There's another one too that talks about the wick trimmed and burning. But the final phrase at the end of the reading, the one that we're supposed to take with us, is not actually a chastisement to keep your wicks trimmed and burning. That's not why the door was shut. Nor is the final phrase, make sure you have backup oil with you in case the bridal party is delayed. Every attendant brings a lamp filled with oil that they think they will need in fulfilling some fulfilling some notion. Are our online folks still with us, or did we lose them, Matt? Or Kathy? They're still with you? Okay. They become so consumed with how things are supposed to go that they leave and they miss the moment. The end of the parable doesn't end with, make sure you have oil in your lamp, or each person should have brought a lamp to be let in. They just maybe had to be there when the door was opened so that they would be known. The phrase that is said is, so therefore, stay awake. Stay awake. Every single attendant in this party falls asleep. We hear this refrain to stay awake repeatedly in the book of Matthew and in the chapter immediately after this one, when we encounter the disciples all fast asleep as they await Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And we hear this phrase from Jesus' mouth in his anguished plea, couldn't you stay awake for me? Couldn't you stay awake? And so the chapter before, we're hearing this refrain, this urge to stay awake. What does it mean to stay awake? There's an aspect, I think, to staying awake that means being alert. Kind of hope that Jane talked about recently, about living in a world that sometimes fills us with despair and grounding ourselves in the hope. Sometimes we find that hope in one another in our community. Stay awake. Don't leave. What does it mean to stay awake, to stay present, even when we don't feel prepared? Even when we are dragged down by the sense of dread and gloom that sometimes surrounds us in our world? What does it mean to stay present, to stay awake when you feel you have made some error, when you feel shame about something that you have done, when you feel inadequate and underprepared, when you feel like you are one of the foolish? As participants in this community of faith, we are all going to have moments when we feel we are not enough, when we have failed to fulfill what we believe to be the expectations. And I urge you, when you come up against that feeling, this passage urges you, don't leave. Don't miss the moment of beauty, of connection, of welcome that awaits all of us if we just stick around. A moment that we will miss if our own thoughts of inadequacy or embarrassment consume us and lead us out of the community. Conversely, we all have moments where we might feel the opposite, where we feel very prepared, plenty of extra oil, wicks trimmed and burning, we are ready. Number one, we would do well to remember that all of the attendants fell asleep. Lamps, oil, or no, we all fell asleep. And maybe it's not possible to share our oil. Maybe there is an aspect of loving ourselves as we are urged to do that calls us to hold on to our oil. But maybe what we can share is our light in those moments. The last thing we should do, as these wise ones do in our parable, is take people who are struggling and send them away. to figure it out on their own, to go engage in commerce to fix their problem. There are times in our community where we may be tempted to just wish someone who is struggling, who is asking more of us than we think we have in us to give, would make our lives, our community, our meetings just a little easier if they would find someone else to help them. So perhaps when it's our moment to feel strong, to have abundant oil, to place our lights where others can use to see. As we enter into a new church, for when people join us, we all become new, shaping and forming, being influenced and changed. As we enter into this new church today, the lesson from this parable might just be, how do we love each other and ourselves as much as we love the God who opens that door? And how can we stay awake to it all, present to the gift that is amongst us, the gift that is in each other, so that when that door opens, the door of the holy moment opens, we are all there to be known. Church, let us stay awake together. Amen.